Every morning I felt nauseous, but the doctors couldn't find the cause. One day, a jeweler on the subway touched my hand. "Take off that necklace, I see something in the pendant." I shuddered. My husband gave it to me. Nausea rose in her throat like a familiar tide. Sophia barely had her eyes open before she threw back the comforter and sprinted to the bathroom, managing to slam the door just before her stomach emptied itself completely. For 2 months, every single morning had begun the same way, with this exhausting ritual over the toilet, after which she felt utterly wrung out, splashing her face with cold water. Sophia stared at her reflection in the mirror. A pale face, dark circles under her eyes, sharp cheekbones. In those 2 months, she had lost 15 pounds, though she'd never been overweight. Her colleagues at the pharmacy had already started whispering behind her back. She would catch fragments of conversations about anorexia and nervous exhaustion. The bathroom door creaked open and Alex's worried face appeared. "Again?" he asked softly. Sophia nodded, unable to speak. Her husband came closer, wrapped his arms around her shoulders, and she smelled the familiar scent of his woody cologne with notes of bergamot. "What if we see another doctor? Mom says she knows a gastroenterologist, a really good specialist." At the mention of her mother-in-law, Sophia tensed involuntarily but tried not to show it. Eleanor was a delicate subject in their marriage, the only cloud in the clear sky of their relationship. "I've already seen 5 doctors, Alex. They all say the same thing. The tests are fine, my organs are healthy, maybe it's psychosomatic, so you need a psychologist." Sophia pulled away and looked her husband in the eyes. Was it her imagination, or did a flicker of doubt cross his gaze? No, she was probably imagining it. Alex loved her. Of that, she had no doubt. "I'm not crazy," she said quietly, but firmly. "I'm not saying you're crazy, it's just that Mom thinks, and what else does your mother think?" The question came out sharper than she intended. Alex frowned, and an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Sophia immediately regretted her words. "I'm sorry, I'm just tired. This nausea is draining me." Her husband nodded, but she saw a shadow of hurt in his eyes. He could never take her complaints about his mother calmly. To him, Eleanor was the ideal woman, strong, wise, always right. And Sophia. Sophia was just the wife who for some reason couldn't find common ground with his family. As she got ready for work, she mechanically touched the pendant on her neck, an elegant silver oval with an engraved ivy leaf. Alex had given it to her for their 3rd wedding anniversary 2 months ago. "So you can always feel my love close to you," he had said then, fastening the chain around her neck. Since then, she hadn't taken the piece of jewelry off for a minute. The pendant was cool and pleasant against her skin, and Sophia smiled involuntarily. Whatever happened, she had Alex, the man who had changed her life 3 years ago. On her way to work, as usual, she went down into the subway. The morning crowd, the smell of coffee and perfume, the murmur of voices, all of it had become the familiar backdrop to her days. Sophia leaned against the handrail, closing her eyes. The nausea had subsided a bit, but the weakness remained. "Excuse me." The voice was very close, and Sophia jumped, opening her eyes. In front of her stood an older man, tall, with a neat gray beard and an attentive gaze in his dark eyes. He wore an old-fashioned but well-kept suit, and on his ring finger was a wide gold ring with an intricate engraving. "Do I know you?" Sophia asked, bewildered. "No. But I must tell you something." The man spoke softly, almost in a whisper, leaning toward her. He smelled of old books, and faintly of metal. "I'm sorry, I'm not interested." Sophia tried to pull away, thinking he was another city eccentric or a con man, but the man gently touched her arm. He didn't grab her but touched her lightly, carefully. "Take off the necklace. I see what's independent." Sophia froze. Her fingers went involuntarily to the piece of jewelry. "My husband gave it to me for our anniversary. What do you think you're doing?" "Open it in front of me," the man said quietly. There was no threat in his voice, only a strange, terrifying certainty. "It doesn't open, it's a solid piece." The stranger shook his head. "Yes, it does. Do you see that line on the side edge? It's a mechanism." Sophia wanted to argue, to walk away, to call the police, anything. But something in the man's eyes made her hesitate. He didn't seem like a madman, and he certainly didn't look like a scammer. The train slowed, the doors opened. People around them moved, getting on and off. The man took a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. Richard Sterling, jeweler and antiquarian. 40 years working with jewelry. If you don't believe me, check for yourself. But if you value your life, take that pendant off and never put it on again. He stepped out of the car, and the doors closed behind him. Sophia stood there, clutching the card in her hand. Her heart beating so loud it felt like the whole car could hear it. The workday dragged on unbearably long. The pharmacy, where Sophia had worked for 5 years, was in a residential neighborhood. Regular customers, familiar prescriptions, familiar faces, usually this routine calmed her. But today, every minute was a struggle. "Sophia, you're so pale," noticed Lucy, her friend and colleague, coming up to the register during a lull between customers. "Morning sickness, as always. Have you taken a pregnancy test?" Sophia smiled bitterly. "About 20 times, all negative." Lucy frowned. They had been friends since their first year of pharmacy school almost 10 years ago. Lucy was a nurse at the clinic next door, and knew more about Sophia's health than the doctors themselves. Maybe a hidden infection. Parasites? "They've tested me for everything. Nothing." "What about a toxicology screen?" Sophia looked at her friend in surprise. "Toxicology? You think someone is poisoning me?" Lucy shrugged. "I'm just going through the options. The symptoms are very strange. Morning sickness, weakness, weight loss, and all the tests are normal. That can happen with chronic low-dose poisoning." Sophia felt her hands go cold. The words of the stranger on the subway came back to her with terrifying clarity. "If you value your life, take that pendant off." "Lucy, that's ridiculous. No one would want to poison me." "What about your mother-in-law?" Lucy asked. "You've told me yourself how much she hates you. How she tried to break you two up. How she told Alex you weren't the woman for him." Sophia shook her head. Yes, her relationship with Eleanor was far from ideal, but poisoning sounded insane. "She's an overbearing, unpleasant woman, but not a murderer." Lucy fell silent, but her expression was doubtful. Sophia turned to the medicine shelf, pretending to check expiration dates. The jeweler's card burned in her pocket like a hot coal. That evening when she got home, Sophia went straight to the bathroom and examined the pendant in the mirror for a long time. The elegant silver oval with the ivy leaf. Alex had said he'd had it commissioned from a jewelry workshop, an exclusive hand-engraved piece. She ran her finger along the side edge and suddenly stopped. There really was a fine, barely perceptible line, almost invisible. She had previously mistaken it for a decorative element, but now... "Sophia, are you home?" Alex's voice came from the entryway. She startled, and quickly hid the pendant under her blouse. "Yes, I'm in the bathroom." Coming out to greet her husband, she tried to smile as naturally as possible. Alex looked tired. He worked as an architect at a large firm, and had been staying late for a month on a major project. "How are you feeling?" he asked, kissing her on the forehead. "Better. I've barely had any nausea during the day. See? Maybe it's already passing." Sophia nodded, though she knew it wasn't true. The nausea didn't disappear. She had just learned to hide it, but the weakness was only increasing. Sometimes she felt like her legs would give out, and she would collapse right at work. During dinner, Alex talked about the project, the difficulties with the client, the plans for the weekend. Sophia listened with half an ear, thinking about the pendant. Should she tell her husband about the strange jeweler, or would she just scare him and he would once again advise her to see a psychologist? "Mom asked us to stop by on Sunday," Alex said casually. Sophia suppressed a sigh. "She's worried about you, you know." The skepticism in her voice was obvious. Alex frowned. "Sophia, you're unfair to her. She wants to help." "Help? Your mother has hated me from day one. You know that perfectly well." "That's not true." "Not true? And who told me at our wedding that I was ruining her son's life? Who called you every day for the first year of our marriage, convincing you to get a divorce? Who still refers to me as that woman instead of by my name?" Alex put down his fork. "She has a difficult character, but she's my mother, and that means I have to endure her humiliations?" A heavy silence fell. Sophia watched as her husband struggled within himself, between his love for her and his loyalty to his mother. That struggle had been going on for the 3 years of their marriage, and each time it ended the same way. Alex would try to please both, and Sophia would be the one to suffer. "Let's not argue," he said finally. "You're sick." I'm tired. Let's talk about this later. Sophia wanted to retort, but held back. He was right. They were both too exhausted for this conversation. At night, she lay awake, listening to her husband's even breathing beside her. The pendant was still on her neck, now warm from her body heat. The jeweler's words wouldn't leave her alone. What had he seen in that piece of jewelry? And why was he so sure it was dangerous? The memory of her first meeting with her mother-in-law surfaced on its own, unwanted but inevitable. It was 4 years ago, in a restaurant with a panoramic view of the city. Alex had invited her to meet his mother, and Sophia had prepared for the meeting with the excitement of a young woman in love, wanting to please her beloved's family. Eleanor arrived 20 minutes late. As she later learned, this was her signature move. Tall, imposing, with a perfect hairstyle, and a cold look in her blue-gray eyes. She looked Sophia over from head to toe, in an evaluating glance, and pressed her lips together almost imperceptibly. "So, this is your choice." She addressed her son as if Sophia weren't there. "Mom, this is Sophia. Sophia, this is my mother, Eleanor. A pleasure to meet you," Sophia smiled, extending her hand. Her mother-in-law looked at the outstretched hand as if it were something unpleasant and barely touched it with her fingertips. Throughout the evening she interrogated Sophia like a prosecutor. Who were her parents? What did they do? What was her education? How much did she earn? Did she own her own home? The answers clearly did not satisfy Eleanor. Sophia's parents were simple people. Her father was an electrician. Her mother, a nurse. They lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, inherited from her grandmother. "I see," the mother-in-law said after another answer. "And what are your plans for my son?" "Mom," Alex protested. "What? I have a right to know what this girl's intentions are." Sophia didn't know what to say then. She loved Alex. Wasn't that enough? But for Eleanor, love was too abstract a concept. She thought in terms of benefits, status, prospects. After that meeting, the mother-in-law called Alex, and for 2 hours tried to convince him to break off the relationship. "That girl is not for you. She's a gold digger. You deserve someone from your own circle." Alex didn't listen to her. Back then, he was ready to do anything for their love. They got married a year later, despite all of Eleanor's objections. At the wedding, the mother-in-law sat with a stone face and ostentatiously left right after the ceremony, without staying for the reception. "You've ruined my son's life," she whispered to Sophia before leaving. "He will never forgive you for this." 3 years had passed since then. Eleanor hadn't given up. She had just changed her tactics. Now she didn't make open scandals, but acted more subtly. She called Alex every day, complained about her health, demanded attention. At every meeting, she found a way to humiliate Sophia. A comment about her hairstyle, her clothes, her cooking. "I'm surprised you haven't poisoned your husband with your casseroles yet," she said once at a family dinner. Sophia remembered how her heart sank at those words, and how Alex remained silent, pretending not to have heard. Dawn came too quickly. Nausea hit her with the first rays of sun, stronger than usual. Sophia barely made it to the bathroom. She vomited so much that her vision blurred, and when it was over, she collapsed strengthlessly onto the cold tiled floor. What was happening to her? Why couldn't the doctors find anything? The pendant was cool against her skin, as if reminding her of its presence. Suddenly, Sophia felt an irresistible urge to rip it off, to throw it away, to get rid of it forever. But it was a gift from her husband, the only piece of jewelry he had ever chosen for her. And yet, with trembling hands, she unfastened the clasp and left the pendant on the shelf above the sink. Then, with an effort, she got up, washed her face, and went to the kitchen. Alex had already left for work. He got up early to avoid the traffic jams. On the table was a note. "Breakfast is in the fridge. Love you. Don't forget about Sunday." Sunday. The visit to her mother-in-law. Sophia crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. The day passed strangely. Without the pendant she felt better. The nausea didn't disappear completely, but it became less intense. At lunchtime Sophia was even able to eat normally for the first time in weeks. "You look better today," Lucy noted during a break. "Seriously, you have some color. You look like a person again." Sophia was lost in thought. Could the pendant really be connected to her condition? It sounded crazy. But that evening, She took out the jeweler's card and examined it for a long time. Richard Sterling, jeweler and antiquarian. Appraisal. Repair. Expertise. The address indicated a small workshop in an old part of the city. Should I go? She thought. At least to find out what he meant. But at the last moment, she changed her mind. That old man probably just wanted to pull her leg, get some money out of her for an expensive appraisal or repair. There were so many scammers in the city. She put the pendant back on and went to sleep. The next morning began with such a severe attack of nausea that Sophia lost consciousness in the bathroom. She woke up on the cold, hard floor. Her head was spinning and she had a metallic taste in her mouth. "What's happening to me?" she whispered into the void. Barely getting up, she looked in the mirror and shuddered. The face of a seriously ill person stared back at her, gray, gaunt, with a bluish tint under her eyes. She had never felt so bad. Her hands went on their own to the pendant's clasp. She took it off and left it on the shelf, just like the day before. And as if by magic, she felt the pressure in her stomach ease slightly. That day she didn't go to work. She called in sick. She spent the whole day at home without the pendant. And by evening she felt almost normal. She had dinner, watched a movie, even took a short walk in the courtyard. And before bed, she put the jewelry back on, afraid that Alex would notice its absence and get upset. The morning greeted her with another attack. Now there was no doubt. 2 days without the pendant, relative relief. 2 days with the pendant, a horrible state. It couldn't be a coincidence. "I'm going crazy," Sophia told herself, but her hands were already dialing the number from the business card. Richard answered on the third ring. "Sterling. Hello. We met on the subway a few days ago. You told me about my pendant." A pause, then a voice filled with relief. "You finally called. Thank God. I was afraid I hadn't made it in time." Hadn't made it in time? For what? "To save you, my dear girl. To save you." Richard Sterling's workshop was in an old building near downtown with high ceilings, narrow windows, and creaky wooden floors. The sign above the entrance read, "Jewelry Workshop, Appraisal, Repair, Expertise." Since 1978, Sophia pushed the heavy door and found herself in a small room filled with glass display cases. Behind the counter, bent over a magnifying glass, sat the same man from the subway. "Come in," he said, without looking up. "Did you bring the pendant?" "Yes." Sophia took the jewelry out of her pocket and placed it on the counter. Richard Sterling set aside his work and carefully examined the pendant without touching it. Then he put on thin gloves and took the jewelry in his hands. "I didn't introduce myself properly. Richard Sterling. Before retiring, I worked as a forensic expert in the Major Crimes Unit specializing in poisoning and toxicology. For the last 15 years, I've been in the jewelry business, a hobby that became a profession, so to speak, a forensic expert." Sophia felt her hands go cold, precisely. "And when I saw your pendant on the subway, I knew right away that something was wrong. You see, I've worked with poisonings for too many years not to recognize the characteristic symptoms, the color of your face, the dark circles, the general exhaustion, a classic picture of chronic intoxication. But the doctors didn't find anything because they weren't looking in the right place. They were analyzing your body, when what needed to be analyzed was your environment." He turned the pendant on its side. "Do you see this line? It's not decorative. It's a hidden mechanism." Richard took a thin tool resembling a dental probe from a drawer and carefully inserted it into the barely visible slit on the side of the pendant. There was a soft click and the pendant opened into 2 halves. Sophia stifled a cry. Inside, in a special hollow, lay a tiny capsule, no bigger than a grain of rice. It was semi-transparent, with a dark substance inside. "What is this?" she whispered. "This, my dear friend, is the explanation for your illness. A microcapsule, with a substance that is released upon contact with human body heat. You wear the pendant on your chest, the warmest place. The capsule heats up, its walls become permeable, and the poison slowly but surely enters your system through the skin." Sophia felt like she was going to faint. Richard quickly sat her down in a chair and gave her a glass of water. "Breathe. Take a deep breath." "Who? Who did this?" "I don't know that. But I can tell you for sure that this is not a manufacturing defect or an accident. Someone intentionally modified this piece of jewelry to harm you. But it's a gift from my husband. He couldn't have." The jeweler held up a hand. I'm not saying your husband did it. It's possible he doesn't even suspect its contents. But someone with access to this pendant, turned it into a murder weapon. Murder. Sophia could barely speak. Not immediately, of course. Slow poisoning is always a long-term game. They would have attributed it to some disease, maybe even cancer. The doctors would have found organ malfunction, but never the cause. The perfect crime. Sophia covered her face with her hands. She couldn't process it. Who could want her dead? And most importantly, why? We need to run a test, Richard continued. Determine what exactly is in this capsule and find who put it there. It's too soon for the police. We don't have proof of a crime, only a suspicion. First the analysis, then we decide how to proceed. Sophia nodded. Her head was spinning. Do you have someone you trust? Friends? Family? My friend Lucy is a nurse. Good. We might need her help. And for now, not a word to your husband. I understand it's difficult, but until we know who is behind this, we can't take any risks. Leaving the workshop, Sophia felt as if the world around her had collapsed and been rebuilt, but in a distorted, nightmarish way. The husband she loved had given her a poisoned pendant. The mother-in-law who hated her, could it be possible? No. It was too much. It was impossible. But the capsule with poison was very real, and someone had put it there. She spent the whole evening as if in a daze. She made dinner, talked to Alex about his work, watched TV, but she did everything mechanically, like an automaton. Only one thought was spinning in her head. You're a little off today, Alex noted before they went to sleep. I'm just tired. Are you still not feeling well? A little. She swallowed to get rid of the lump in her throat. Alex, where did you buy my pendant? He looked at her, surprised. At a jewelry store on Madison Avenue. Why? Just curious. Did you pick it out yourself? Well, yes. I mean, Mom helped me choose it. She knows a lot about jewelry. Sophia felt as if icy fingers were squeezing her heart. Your mother? Yes. I showed her several options, and she said this one was the most beautiful. Why do you ask? No reason. Just wanted to know. She turned to the wall so her husband wouldn't see her face. Eleanor had helped choose the pendant. Eleanor, who from the very first day had dreamed of getting rid of her. But to suspect her mother-in-law of attempted murder was madness. It was the delirium of a paranoid woman. And yet you've ruined my son's life. He will never forgive you for this. The word she said at the wedding came back to her with terrifying clarity. Back then, Sophia had taken them as the simple malice of an offended mother. But what if there was something more behind them? The next day, she met Lucy at a coffee shop near work. Her friend listened to her story with growing horror. Oh my God, Sophia, are you sure? The jeweler showed me the capsule. It was inside the pendant, tiny, with a substance inside. And he thinks it's poison. He's a former forensic expert. He says the symptoms are typical of chronic poisoning. Lucy was silent, processing the information. And you think it was your mother-in-law? I don't know. But Alex said she helped choose the pendant and had access to it. She often comes to our apartment when I'm not there. She has keys. But that's murder. Attempted murder. Sophia corrected her. As long as I'm still alive. Lucy grabbed her hand. You have to go to the police. Richard says we need the analysis first. Otherwise they won't believe us. What analysis? An official one in a lab. Yes, he knows people who can help, but it will take time. Lucy frowned. And have you told Alex? Sophia shook her head. I can't. If it's his mother, he won't believe me. He'll take her side, like he always does. You're being unfair. Maybe this time, Lucy. You don't understand. I've lived with him for 3 years. Every time it comes to his mother, he becomes blind and deaf. To him, she's a saint. And I'm a hysteric who exaggerates. Her friend squeezed her hand. Then let's gather proof. Irrefutable proof. So he can't deny it. Sophia nodded. It was the only way. The following days, her life turned into a strange spy game. Sophia wore the pendant so Alex wouldn't notice its absence. But she tried to take it off at every opportunity. At work, the jewelry stayed in her desk drawer. At home, on the bathroom shelf. She told Alex the chain was irritating her neck. Richard sent the capsule for analysis to an old acquaintance, a toxicologist who worked in a private lab. The results would be ready in a week. Meanwhile, Sophia secretly watched her mother-in-law. It turned out to be easier than she thought. Eleanor was an active social media user and regularly posted photos of her busy life, meetings with friends, trips to the theater, charity events, the perfect image of a successful retiree. But among the photos, Sophia found something interesting. 2 months ago, just before her anniversary, her mother-in-law had posted photos from that same jewelry store on Madison Avenue. "Helping my son with a gift for his wife," the caption read, with Eleanor posing next to a jewelry display case. So she was really there. She really touched the pendant. But that still didn't prove anything. Sophia kept digging. She started noticing things she hadn't paid attention to before. The frequency with which her mother-in-law came to their apartment for no apparent reason, usually when Sophia was at work. How Alex told his mother everything that happened in their family. How Eleanor was always aware of their plans, their schedules, even the contents of their fridge. She controls our life. Sophia realized with horror. She always has. On Sunday, as planned, they went to her mother-in-law's. Sophia wore the pendant. She had no choice. Eleanor noticed the jewelry immediately. "Oh, what a beautiful pendant," she said in a honeyed voice. "Son, did you give this to her?" "Yes, Mom, for our anniversary." "How lovely. Let me see it closer." The mother-in-law reached for the pendant, and Sophia instinctively recoiled. "What's wrong with you?" Eleanor frowned. "I just want to admire it." "I'm sorry. I'm just not feeling very well. Always with your ailments." There was barely concealed irritation in the mother-in-law's voice. "Alex, you should really take her to a good psychiatrist. A normal woman doesn't get sick for no reason." Sophia clenched her teeth to keep from responding rudely. Lunch passed in a tense atmosphere. Eleanor, as usual, didn't miss an opportunity to take a jab at her daughter-in-law. Comments about her paleness, her thinness, her ineptitude in the kitchen. It all flowed in a continuous stream disguised as maternal concern. "Alex is so thin," the mother-in-law lamented. "You're probably not feeding him." "Mom, I'm fine." Alex tried to intervene. "Of course you say that so as not to upset her, but I can see. When you lived with me, you were such a strong, healthy boy." Sophia ate her salad in silence, counting the minutes until she could leave. And then she noticed something strange. Her mother-in-law was looking at her pendant. Not just looking, but studying it with a predatory focus, as if checking that the jewelry was in its place. Their eyes met, and Eleanor instantly looked away, putting on a fake smile. "A little more salad, dear." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. It was the look of someone with a secret, a terrible secret. On the way home, she was silent. Alex, used to her gloom after visits to his mother, didn't ask questions. He turned on the radio and focused on the road. "Alex," Sophia said suddenly, if you had to choose between your mother and me, who would you choose?" He glanced at her in surprise. "What kind of question is that?" "Just answer." Alex was silent. "Sophia, that's not fair. You're both important to me. You don't have to put me in that position. And if you had to," again, silence. "Then, I hope I never have to." It wasn't an answer. And Sophia understood that when the time came, her husband wouldn't take her side. He would again try to please both of them. He would again choose neutrality, and she would be left alone. The analysis results came 5 days later. Richard called her at work. His voice was grim. "Can you come by? We need to talk." At the workshop, the jeweler was waiting for her with a thick folder of documents. "Sit down," he indicated a chair. "The news is not good." Sophia felt her legs go weak. "What's in it?" "Thallium." "Thallium?" "A heavy metal. One of the most toxic to humans. It used to be used to poison rats, but then it was banned. Too dangerous. In chronic poisoning, it causes nausea, weakness, hair loss, and damage to the nervous system. In high doses, it's lethal." Sophia gripped the edge of the table. "But how? How did it get into the pendant?" "That's the main question." Richard opened the folder. The capsule was custom-made. It wasn't an accident. Someone knew what they were doing. The walls of the capsule are made of a special material that becomes permeable at temperatures above 86 degrees. When you wear the pendant, it warms up from your body, and the thallium is slowly released through the skin. But where would a normal person get thallium? It's not easy to get, but it's possible. It used to be sold in rat poisons. Now of course it's banned, but on the black market, or if someone kept old stock. Sophia remembered her mother-in-law's house, an old stately apartment with a storeroom full of junk. Eleanor boasted that she never threw anything away. You never know what might be useful. I need to check something, she said. What exactly? My mother-in-law has a storeroom. She keeps everything, including old chemicals. Maybe. Richard frowned. That's dangerous. If she's really behind this, and for now, it's just a guess, she won't stop. I know, but I need proof. Then, be careful. And don't go alone. Sophia nodded. She already knew who she would take with her. Lucy received the idea with mixed feelings. Sneaking into your mother-in-law's house? Sophia, you're crazy. It's not sneaking. It's a legal inspection. Alex will give me the keys and won't ask what for. I'll tell him I want a recipe from an old cookbook. He's at work all day anyway. Lucy shook her head. This is a bad idea. Do you have a better one? Her friend was silent. There was no better idea. The plan was simple. Sophia would ask her husband for the keys to his mother's apartment, under the pretext that Eleanor had promised her a recipe from an old cookbook. Then, while her mother-in-law was at her weekly opera to lovers' club meeting, she and Lucy would enter the apartment and inspect the storeroom. It sounded like a plan from a bad detective movie, but Sophia couldn't think of anything better. Alex gave her the keys without asking too many questions. He was too busy with his project to get into details. Just don't leave anything messy. Mom doesn't like it? He asked. Sophia promised. On Thursday evening, when Eleanor left for the opera, the two friends stood in front of her apartment door. Ready? Lucy whispered. Sophia nodded and inserted the key into the lock. Her mother-in-law's apartment was just as she remembered it, impeccably clean, exquisitely decorated, and cold. Everything was in its place, and every object seemed to say, "Don't touch me." Where's the storeroom? Lucy asked. The door is in the kitchen. There are stairs leading down. They walked through the hallway, trying not to make any noise, even though the apartment was empty. Sophia found the storeroom door old, wooden, with a heavy lock. Damn, it's locked. Do you have the key? Alex only gave me the one for the front door. Lucy examined the lock. It's an old one. The kind you can open with a hairpin. Can you do it? Her friend smiled. As a kid, I had access to all the neighbors' sheds. 5 minutes later, the lock clicked open. Sophia pushed the door, and a smell of dampness and dust hit them. The stairs were steep and dark. Sophia turned on her phone's flashlight and started down. Lucy followed her. The storeroom was large. A real labyrinth of shelves filled with boxes, jars, and old junk. Everything was stored there, from grandmother's dishes to antique typewriters. What are we looking for? Lucy whispered. I don't know exactly. Chemicals, poisons, something suspicious. They split up to search the storeroom faster. Sophia methodically examined the shelves, opening jars and boxes. Most of them contained harmless junk, old photos, documents, Alex's childhood toys. And then she froze. On the bottom shelf, behind rows of dusty jam jars, was a tin box with a faded inscription. Sophia took it, wiped the lid, and read, "Potent rodenticide. Contents, thallium sulfate." Her heart started beating so fast she was afraid it could be heard. With trembling hands, she opened the box. Inside was a half-empty bag of gray powder. "Lucy," she called in a choked whisper. "Lucy, I found it." Her friend ran over and froze, staring at the box. That's it, thallium sulfate. The same substance that was in the pendant. Lucy photographed the find with her phone. "We need to take this as evidence." Sophia nodded. She was about to grab the box when they heard the sound of a door opening upstairs. They froze. Footsteps. Someone was walking around the apartment, then Eleanor's voice. "Alex, are you here?" Sophia and Lucy looked at each other in horror. The mother-in-law had come back early. "This way," Sophia mouthed silently, and pulled her friend into a dark corner of the storeroom behind an old wardrobe. They hid, holding their breath. Footsteps could be heard upstairs. Eleanor was walking through the kitchen. How strange, her voice came. "The storeroom door is open." The footsteps approached the stairs. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut. The lock must have broken again. the mother-in-law muttered. I need to call a locksmith. The sound of the door closing. The click of the lock. They were trapped. Damn it, Lucy whispered. Shh. Sophia put a finger to her lips. Silence reigned upstairs. Apparently, Eleanor had gone to another part of the apartment, but now it was impossible to get out. What do we do now? Lucy asked, barely audible. Wait. Sooner or later she'll go to bed. And what if she doesn't? Sophia didn't answer. She didn't know. They spent 3 hours in the storeroom, 3 hours in the dark, cold, and fear of being discovered. Lucy periodically checked her phone. No service. The thick walls blocked the signal. Finally, around midnight, they heard footsteps upstairs. The mother-in-law went to her bedroom. The kitchen light went out. Let's wait another hour, Sophia decided. Let her fall soundly asleep. The hour dragged on eternally. But when complete silence took over the apartment, they decided to act. Lucy worked the lock again. From the inside, it opened even more easily. The door creaked softly, and they slipped out into the kitchen. The apartment was dark. Somewhere behind a closed door, the mother-in-law's even snores could be heard. On tiptoe like thieves, they reached the entryway. Sophia had just put her hand on the front doorknob when the hallway light switched on. In the bedroom doorway stood Eleanor in a silk nightgown, a murderous look on her face. Well, well, my dear daughter-in-law, I knew it was you. Sophia froze. Lucy, behind her, stifled a scream. Eleanor, quiet. The mother-in-law's voice was as cold as steel. I see everything. The box with the thallium in your purse. You decided to frame me. Come in. Plant the evidence, and then accuse me of poisoning. What? No, don't deny it. I knew you were cunning, but not this cunning. Eleanor took a step forward. First, you bewitched my son. Now you're trying to get rid of me. But you won't succeed. Do you hear me? You won't succeed. She took out her phone. I'm calling Alex and the police right now. Let's see how you explain why you broke into my house in the middle of the night. Wait, Sophia cried. It wasn't me. It was you. You put the thallium in my pendant. The mother-in-law let out an unpleasant, cackling laugh. What nonsense. Have you gone completely mad? I always told Alex, that woman isn't right in the head. It's not nonsense. There's an analysis. Richard? Who? Richard? Some old man from a shabby workshop who's willing to sign any paper for money. Eleanor was dialing a number. Let's see what the police have to say. Sophia, in desperation, looked at Lucy. She was pale, clutching her phone. And then her friend stepped forward. I recorded everything. The mother-in-law froze. What did you record? Everything. Everything you just said. Lucy held up her phone. I turned on the recorder when we were in the storeroom, just in case. And now I have your words about the thallium, about how you knew about it. You've incriminated yourself. Eleanor turned pale. That's illegal. Recording without consent. Poisoning people is illegal, Sophia said quietly. For 2 months, I've been dying from your poison. Every morning, I woke up in hell. And you were there, smiling. I didn't do anything. The thallium in the storeroom. The pendant. You helped pick it out. You had access to it. You often come to our apartment when I'm not there. That's circumstantial evidence. It doesn't prove anything. And the analysis? The capsule with your fingerprints on it? Do you think the forensic team won't find anything? The mother-in-law fell silent. Her face, usually haughty and confident, now showed fear. What were you trying to do? Sophia asked. Kill me? Or did you just want me to get sick so Alex would leave me? Eleanor swallowed hard. You're not worthy of him, and for that, I deserve to die? I didn't want to. I thought you would just get sick. You'd become weak, helpless. And Alex would see how pathetic and useless you really are and leave you himself. But thallium is lethal. I didn't know, the mother-in-law cried. I thought it would just make you suffer a little. Sophia looked at this woman until recently so fearsome and all-powerful, and felt only emptiness. Not hatred, not fear, just immense exhaustion. Lucy, call the police, she said softly. Eleanor lunged at her. No. Wait. We can make a deal. I'll give you money. A lot of money. But don't call the police. It's too late, Sophia replied. Much too late. The police arrived in 20 minutes. They took Eleanor away in handcuffs, disheveled, shouting something about injustice and conspiracies. Sophia stood on the sidewalk, wrapped in a jacket one of the officers gave her, watching the flashing blue and red lights of the patrol cars illuminate the night street. Lucy had her arm around her shoulders. "How are you?" "I don't know." "Empty." "It's normal. It's shock. I need to call Alex. The police have already notified him. He's on his way." Sophia closed her eyes. Soon her husband would arrive and she would have to tell him that his mother was a poisoner, that the woman he had idolized his whole life had tried to kill his wife. How would he take it? Alex appeared half an hour later, pale, with a lost look in his eyes. He got out of the car and ran to Sophia. "What happened? What's going on with Mom?" "They called me. They said Alex." Her voice was low, tired. "We need to talk." They were sitting in the car, Sophia and Alex. The police had finished questioning the witnesses and left. Lucy had gone home in a cab after hugging her friend, and they were left alone. In the silence of the night, under the dim light of the street lamps, Sophia told him everything from the beginning. The morning sickness that hadn't let up for 2 months, the jeweler on the subway who saw what she hadn't noticed, the thallium capsule hidden in the pendant, the analysis that confirmed the worst suspicions. Alex listened in silence. His face was expressionless, like a mask, and only the white knuckles of his fingers gripping the steering wheel betrayed his inner tension. When she finished, a long, heavy, unbearable silence fell. "You don't believe me, do you?" Sophia said quietly. It wasn't a question. Alex's voice trembled. "I don't know what to think. It's my mother." She couldn't. "There's an analysis. There's the thallium found in her storeroom. There's a recording where she admits it. She was in shock. You caught her off guard in the middle of the night. People say crazy things when they're scared." Sophia closed her eyes. There it was. What she had feared so much. He was choosing his mother again. "Alex, your mother has been poisoning me for 2 months. Every day I wore that pendant. Poison was entering my body. You saw how I was wasting away, how I couldn't eat, how I was fainting. And you think it's a coincidence? But why? Why would she do it? She said it herself. She wanted me to get sick. For you to see me as weak and pathetic. So you would leave me." Alex slammed his fist on the steering wheel. "This is insane. My mother is not a murderer. And who put the thallium in the pendant? Did I poison myself?" He turned to her. And in his eyes she saw something terrible. Doubt. He was actually considering that possibility. "Alex?" Her voice turned icy. "Do you really think I'm capable of something like that?" "No. I don't know. I don't understand anything." He got out of the car and started pacing the sidewalk, holding his head. Sophia got out after him. "Alex? Listen." "No." He turned sharply. "I can't talk about this now. I need to think. I need to see Mom. Talk to her. She's at the station. They won't release her until the trial. I'll find a way." He got back in the car and drove off, leaving Sophia alone on the deserted street. She watched the taillights disappear and felt something inside her break, slowly and painfully. She took a cab home. The apartment met her with silence and darkness. Sophia turned on the light in the entryway and froze in front of the mirror. An exhausted woman with a dull gaze stared back at her. She wasn't wearing the pendant. They had taken it as evidence. Strangely, without it, she felt freer, lighter. Or maybe it was just the nervous exhaustion that had numbed all her senses. She went to bed without undressing, and fell into a heavy, restless sleep. The morning brought a headache and a text from Lucy. "How are you? Call me when you wake up." Sophia called her friend. "Hey. I'm still alive." Alex came by. He left. Said he needs to think and talk to his mother. Lucy swore. "He still doesn't believe you." He's torn. It's his mother, Lucy. He can't just accept that she's a criminal. And you're his wife, the victim. He should be on your side. Sophia sighed wearily. He should be, but he won't be. At least not right away. And what are you going to do? Wait. I have no other choice. The day passed in a strange haze. Sophia didn't go to work. She called in sick, which wasn't far from the truth. She stayed home, drinking tea, looking out the window. The phone didn't ring. Alex didn't call. In the afternoon, the detective showed up, a tired, middle-aged man with sharp eyes. He asked questions, took a statement, asked her to clarify details. Sophia told him everything, from the first symptoms to the late-night entry into her mother-in-law's apartment. Eleanor denies her involvement. The detective informed her. She says the thallium belonged to previous tenants, and that she didn't touch the pendant after it was purchased. But the recording is ambiguous. Her lawyer claims the words were taken out of context, said in a state of stress. Sophia felt the floor give way beneath her. So now what? The forensic analysis. The criminalists will examine the pendant for fingerprints. They will compare the composition of the thallium from the capsule and the jar in the storeroom. If it matches, that will be solid proof. And if it doesn't, the detective fell silent. Then it will be more complicated. But we will find the truth. Don't worry. After he left, Sophia sat in the dark for a long time. Thoughts swirled in her head. What if the analysis proved nothing? What if her mother-in-law got away with it? What if Alex never believed her? The phone rang. Her husband's name appeared on the screen. Hello? Sophia? Alex's voice was dull, broken. I saw Mom at the detention center. She says it's all a misunderstanding, that you framed her. Sophia closed her eyes. Of course. What else could she expect? And you believe her? For 3 years I've endured your mother's humiliations, her jabs, her contempt. I never responded in kind. I never tried to turn you against her. And you think I'm capable of such a vile act? No, I don't think so. It's just what? She's my mother, Sophia. I can't just accept that she wanted to kill you, then believe the facts, the analysis, science. If she's innocent, it will be proven. But for now, all the evidence points to her. Alex was silent. Sophia could hear his heavy breathing on the other end of the line. I need time, he said finally. How much? I don't know. I'm going to stay at a friend's for a while. I need to be alone to think about everything. Sophia's heart sank. You're leaving? I'm not leaving. I'm just taking a break. At a time like this, when I've just found out I've been poisoned for 2 months. When I need your support the most. Sophia, please, don't push me. I can't right now. Can't what? Stand by your wife? Protect her? Believe her? Her voice trembled with pain and anger. For 3 years she had endured. For 3 years she had stayed silent when she should have screamed. And now, when the truth had finally come out, he was choosing neutrality again. I'll call you, Alex said, and hung up. Sophia threw the phone onto the sofa and burst into tears. For the first time in these crazy days, tears streamed down her cheeks, her body shaking with sobs, and she didn't try to hold them back. She was alone. Completely alone. The next few days blended into a gray, formless blur. Sophia went to work, mechanically performed her duties, returned to an empty apartment. Alex called once every 2 or 3 days short, formal conversations about nothing. He would ask how she was feeling. She would answer, normal. Both knew it was a lie. Lucy came over every evening with food, movies, attempts to cheer her up. Sophia was grateful, but even her friend's presence couldn't fill the void she felt. Richard didn't leave her alone either. He called, asked about the investigation's progress, gave advice. It turned out he still had contacts in law enforcement and could get first-hand information. The analysis is almost ready. He informed her one day. The results will be in soon. And, what do they say? I don't know for sure yet, but my source says everything is pointing in your favor. That should have made her happy. But Sophia only felt tired. Even if they convicted her mother-in-law, what would change? Alex would still not forgive her for betraying his mother. A week passed, then 2. Sophia began to get used to the loneliness, the quiet evenings, the empty half of the bed, the absence of a male voice in the apartment. It was painful, but the pain became a familiar background ache. And then the detective called, Sophia, we have the results of the analysis. Can you come in? A surprise awaited her in the detective's office. Alex was already there. He looked haggard with dark circles under his eyes, and when he saw his wife, he looked away. Please, have a seat. The detective indicated a chair. I decided to invite you both because this matter concerns your family. Sophia sat down, trying not to look at her husband. So, the analysis results. The detective opened a folder. The thallium from the pendant's capsule and the thallium from the jar in Eleanor's storeroom are identical. Furthermore, on the inner surface of the capsule, we found partial fingerprints that matched the suspects. Sophia felt a huge weight lift from her shoulders. There it was. Proof. In addition, the detective continued. We found a search history on Eleanor's computer. A month before your wedding anniversary, she searched for information on thallium, its properties, methods of use, and symptoms of poisoning. Alex turned pale. That can't be. Unfortunately, it can. Your mother prepared the crime meticulously. She studied the subject. Bought a special, slow-release capsule, by the way. They're sold online for aromatherapy, and filled it with thallium. But why? Alex's voice trembled. Why would she do it? She can answer that herself. During interrogation, under the pressure of the evidence, Eleanor confessed. Sophia froze. She confessed? Yes. Completely. The detective pulled a transcript from the folder. Here are excerpts from her statement. I quote, "I wanted that woman out of my son's life. She is not worthy of him. I thought if she got sick, he would see how weak she was and leave her. I didn't want to kill her. Just make her helpless. I didn't know thallium was so dangerous." Silence fell in the office. Sophia looked at her husband. His face was gray. His lips were trembling. "It's true," he whispered. "It really is." "Yes," the detective nodded. "Your mother committed attempted murder. The case is going to trial." Alex covered his face with his hands. His shoulders began to shake. He was crying. Sophia watched him and didn't know what to feel. Relief. Pity. Anger. "I need to see her," Alex said in a hoarse voice. "Talk to her." "It's possible. I'll arrange a meeting." They left the office in silence. On the street, Alex stopped, not looking at his wife. "Sophia." First his voice was flat. Colorless. "Not now. I need to apologize to you. Later. First, talk to your mother. Hear everything from her. Firsthand. And then, we'll talk." She turned and walked away, feeling his gaze on her back. Inside, she was empty. No joy from the victory. No relief from justice. Just exhaustion. That evening, Lucy called. I heard the detective confirmed it. It was her. "Yes. Sophia, you should be happy. Justice has been served. I guess. What's wrong with you? You sound so down." Sophia sighed. "Lucy. My mother-in-law wanted to kill me. My husband took weeks to decide who to believe. Even now, with everything proven, I'm not sure he'll forgive me for destroying his family. What is there to celebrate?" Lucy was silent. "Do you think your marriage?" "I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And do you want to save this marriage?" The question hung in the air. Sophia thought about it. She wanted to. 3 years of love, 3 years of life together. Alex wasn't a bad husband, weak, indecisive, too dependent on his mother, but not bad. He loved her in his own way, as he knew how. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "I did before. Now, too much has happened. Maybe you two need to really talk without emotions. Maybe when he's ready." Alex was ready the next day. He came in the afternoon with flowers and a guilty look in his eyes. Sophia opened the door and let him in without a word. "I saw Mom," he said, sitting on the sofa. "We talked for 2 hours, and she really did it. She confessed everything to me without excuses, without trying to blame anyone." Sophia sat in the armchair across from him. "What did she tell you?" Alex took a deep breath. "That she hated you from the first day. That she considered you unworthy of me. That I'm her only son, and she couldn't stand another woman stealing me from her. And that's why she decided to poison me? She said she didn't want to kill you. Just make you sick." "Alex, thallium is lethal. If I had worn that pendant for a few more months, I know." His voice broke. "I know. And God, Sophia, I'm such an idiot. I didn't believe you. I defended her when I should have been defending you. First." He covered his face with his hands. "I almost lost you because of my own blindness." Sophia watched him. Broken, defeated. A part of her wanted to go to him, to hug him, to comfort him. Another part, the part that had suffered for weeks, demanded justice. You took her side, she said softly. When I needed your support the most, you left. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. That's not enough. Alex looked up. What do you mean? Words. Apologies. I'll regret it. They're just words. You've always said the right things, Alex. And then you did what your mother wanted. But now? Now what? She'll be in prison. She won't influence our life anymore. But you'll still be the same person. A person who can't choose, who tries to please everyone, and ends up betraying those who love him most. Alex stood up and came over to her. He knelt in front of the armchair. Sophia, listen to me. I know I screwed up. I know I should have believed you from the beginning. But I was in shock. Finding out your mother is a criminal? It's like the world caves in under your feet. And how do you think I felt? Finding out my mother-in-law wanted to kill me, and my husband believed her more than me. He lowered his head. You're right. I have no right to ask for forgiveness. No. You do. But forgiveness isn't a button you can press. It's a long and painful process. Alex looked into her eyes. Are you saying there's a chance that we can? I don't know, Alex. I really don't. Right now, I'm hurt. I feel pain and resentment. I can't pretend everything is okay. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that I can change. Sophia was silent for a long time. 3 years of love, 3 years of hopes. Was it all for nothing? All right, she said finally. One chance. But if you ever again, there won't be a next time. I swear. He took her hand and kissed it. Sophia didn't pull away, but she didn't respond to the gesture either. She had too many doubts. You should go, she said. I need to be alone. Alex nodded, stood up, grabbed his jacket. I'll call you tomorrow. Call me. When the door closed behind him, Sophia sat in the dark for a long time. Her heart was torn between love and resentment, hope and fear. She didn't know what would happen, but one thing was clear. Forgiving would not be easy. The trial against Eleanor was held 3 months later. Sophia sat in the courtroom, her hands clasped in her lap. Next to her was Lucy, her loyal friend, who hadn't left her side for a minute. Alex sat at the other end of the room, alone. Since that night their relationship had been strange, not cold, but not close either. He would come over, they would talk, sometimes have dinner together, but he was still sleeping at his friend's place. Until you're ready, he had told her. I'll wait. And he waited patiently, without reproach. He sent her texts every day without demanding anything, just a good morning and a good night. He would bring her groceries when she forgot to go to the store. He would drive her to work when she was running late. Small things. But from these small things, something new was emerging. They brought Eleanor into the courtroom in handcuffs. She had aged a lot in those months. She had lost weight. She was stooped. Her hair had turned completely white. But her gaze was still the same, cold and contemptuous. When she saw Sophia, a flicker of hatred crossed her face. The session lasted several hours. The prosecutor read the evidence. The lawyer tried to mitigate the accusation. Eleanor sat upright with a stone face. When she was given the last word, she stood up and scanned the room. I don't regret it, she said. This woman destroyed my family. She took my son from me. I was defending my child, like any mother would. Sophia felt her heart sink. Even now, on the defendant's stand, the mother-in-law did not admit her guilt. Mrs. Eleanor, the judge frowned. You are accused of attempted murder. Your victim, your own daughter-in-law, you consider that a defense? I consider it a mother's love. A murmur went through the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel. Silence. The sentence was harsh. 8 years in prison. They led Eleanor away, and she didn't even turn to look at her son. Alex sat motionless, staring straight ahead. Sophia could see a muscle twitching in his jaw. After the session, they met in the hallway. Alex, don't say anything. His voice was hoarse. I'm fine. No, you're not. He looked at her. His eyes were red. His face gray. They gave her 8 years. 8 years for my mother. She tried to kill me. I know. I know, Sophia. But she's still my mother. Sophia was silent, and then she did something she hadn't done in 3 months. She went up to him and hugged him. Just hugged him. Without words. Alex flinched, and then he held her tightly. Desperately. Forgive me, he whispered. For everything. For all of it. I know, she replied softly. They stood like that for a long time in the middle of the cold courthouse hallway, and Sophia felt something inside her shift. The resentment hadn't disappeared. It would take a long time to go away. But next to it, something else had appeared. Something like hope. That night, Alex came home not for a visit, but to stay. If you'll have me, he said, standing in the doorway with a duffel bag. Sophia stepped aside, letting him in. I can't promise everything will be like it was before. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a chance to build something new. Better than what we had. She nodded. Then come in. The first few weeks were difficult. They were relearning how to live together without the shadow of Eleanor hanging over them, without her calls and visits, without the need for him to be torn between two women. Alex had changed. It was noticeable in the small things, in how he listened to Sophia without interrupting, in how he asked for her opinion, in how he defended her in conversations with friends and family. Your wife put your mother in prison, an uncle said to him at a family dinner. My wife exposed a criminal who tried to kill her, Alex replied calmly. If you ever say anything like that again, we're leaving. Sophia watched him and didn't recognize him. This wasn't the Alex who for 3 years had hidden behind his mother. This was a man who had finally learned to choose. You surprised me, she told him that night. With what? With how you answered your uncle. Alex shrugged. I should have answered like that from the beginning. Defended you, not looked for compromises. Why didn't you before? He grew thoughtful. Mom was always the most important person in my life. My father died young, and she raised me alone. I got used to doing everything for her, her son, her friend, her support. And when you appeared, she felt threatened. And I didn't realize how she started to manipulate me, to turn me against you. Do you still love her? Yes, he didn't deny it. She's my mother. I can't change that. But loving her doesn't mean justifying her. She committed a crime, and she's paying for it. It's fair. Sophia nodded. She understood. It was difficult, painful, but she understood. We'll get through this, she said. Together. That word, together, became their mantra in the following months. Together they went to couples therapy, sifting through the rubble of old wounds. Together they planned a future free from the mother-in-law's shadow. Together they learned to trust each other again. Richard visited them sometimes. He brought old books on jewelry, told stories from his time as an expert. He and Sophia became friends. A strange friendship between a young woman and a retired criminalist, but a sincere one. How did you find me back then? She asked him one day. On the subway. Richard smiled. I wasn't looking for you. It was a coincidence. I was on my way to work. I saw you pale, exhausted, and the pendant on your neck. You know, when you work with poisonings for so many years, you start to notice things others don't. The color of your face, your weakness, it all pointed to chronic intoxication. And then I looked at the pendant and noticed that line. If it weren't for you, I'd be dead. Perhaps, but you're not. You're alive, healthy, and everything will be fine. And everything indeed began to be fine. Slowly, gradually, but it was getting better. Sophia's health returned. Without the poison in her body, the nausea disappeared completely. Her appetite came back. She gained weight. 6 months after the trial, she looked like a different person, rosy-cheeked, energetic, with a sparkle in her eyes. Her relationship with Alex was also improving. They learned to talk honestly, openly, without fear of hurting each other. They learned to argue constructively, and to reconcile without resentment. Are you happy? He asked her one evening as they sat on the balcony, watching the sunset. Sophia thought for a moment. Yes, not like before, in a light, carefree way, but in a real, deeper way. Me too. He took her hand and intertwined their fingers. You know, I'm glad all this happened. Not the poisoning, of course, but what came to light? I was living in an illusion, Sophia. I thought my mother was perfect, that you could love 2 women equally without hurting anyone. Now I realize how naive I was. And how do you see it now? I understand that love is a choice. Every day, every minute. And I choose you. Sophia leaned her head on his shoulder. I choose you too. And at that moment, she realized that yes, they had gotten through it. Not immediately. Not easily. But they had made it. A year passed. A year that changed everything. Their relationship, their outlook on life, their understanding of each other. Sophia sometimes caught herself thinking that she was grateful for that terrible time. Not for the pain, or the fear, but because it had lanced the abscess that had been poisoning their marriage from the beginning. Eleanor was in prison. Alex went to see her once every couple of months. Sophia didn't object. She understood that whatever her mother-in-law had done, she was still his mother. To cut that tie completely would be to force her husband to choose, and she didn't want to repeat Eleanor's mistakes. How is she? Sophia would ask after each visit. She's aged a lot. And what does she say? Alex would shake his head. Always the same. That I betrayed her. That I chose you. That she'll never forgive me. Does it hurt to hear that? It used to. Now I just feel sorry for her. She still doesn't understand what she did. She still sees herself as the victim. Sophia would hug her husband, and he would bury his face in her hair. These moments of intimacy were special to them, not passionate, but profound. Two people who had been through hell and found each other again. Work at the pharmacy continued. Her colleagues, who had learned her story from the news, Eleanor's case had received wide media coverage, looked at her with a new respect. Sophia didn't like those looks, but she endured them. You're a real hero, a young intern told her. I'm not a hero. I'm just a survivor. But you uncovered the crime yourself, without the police? Not alone. Friends, casual acquaintances helped me. I couldn't have done it alone. It was the truth. Lucy, Richard, even the detective, they had all played their part. Sophia had learned her lesson. Asking for help is not a weakness. Richard became a sort of grandfather to her, the one she never had. He visited on Sundays. He brought old books and pastries from his favorite bakery. They would drink tea in the kitchen. And he would tell stories from his practice, sometimes terrible, sometimes funny, always instructive. You know what surprises me most about people? He said one day. What? Their capacity for self-deception. Eleanor sincerely believed she was protecting her son. She didn't see herself as a criminal. In her worldview, she was a loving mother fighting for her child's happiness. And that's the scariest part. Why? Because it's impossible to convince such a person. They live in their own reality, where they are the hero, and everyone else is the villain. No evidence, no arguments, can break down that wall. Sophia grew thoughtful. She remembered her mother-in-law's face at the trial. Cold, contemptuous. I don't regret it. Not a shadow of a doubt, even under the threat of prison. How can you live with people like that? She asked. You can't. You have to stay away. You did the right thing by breaking that vicious circle. But Alex still goes to see her. That's his choice and his right. The important thing is that he has learned to see her as she is, without illusions. The spring of that year came early and was warm. Sophia loved this time of year. When the city woke up from its winter slumber, when the air smelled of melted snow and the first flowers. She and Alex often walked in the evenings, holding hands like they did at the beginning of their relationship. Do you remember how we met? He asked one day. Of course. You spilled coffee on me in a bookstore and then spent 2 hours apologizing until I agreed to give you my number. You were so funny. All red and stammering. I just couldn't believe such a beautiful girl would talk to me. Sophia smiled. She remembered that day in detail. The smell of fresh ink. His flustered smile. The coffee stain on her favorite blouse. I thought then, what a clumsy and cute guy. And I thought, she's the one. The woman of my life. Really? Really. From the very first moment, I knew I wanted to be with you. They stopped by a fountain in the park. The jets of water sparkled in the rays of the setting sun. Alex, I want to tell you something. He turned to her, and a shadow of concern crossed his eyes. Is something wrong? No. Well, yes. But something good. Sophia took his hand and placed it on her belly. I'm pregnant. A moment of silence. And then his face lit up with such joy that her eyes filled with tears. Really? Seriously? Totally serious. 8 weeks. Alex swept her up in his arms and spun her around until she let out a little shriek. Careful. I can't be spun around now. Sorry. Sorry. He gently set her down but didn't let go. Oh my God. We're going to be parents. You and I are going to have a baby. Yes, this is the best news of my life. He kissed her cheeks, her forehead, her nose, her lips. Passers-by turned, smiling at the happy couple. Sophia laughed through her tears, tears of happiness she had waited so long for. The pregnancy was easy as if in compensation for those months of torment. No nausea, no weakness, no terrible morning attacks. Sophia blossomed, her skin glowed, her eyes shone. Even her hair seemed thicker and more lustrous. You're beautiful, Alex told her every morning. I'm fat. You're magnificent, and you're carrying our child. That makes you even more beautiful. He was incredibly attentive, sometimes even too much so. He wouldn't let her lift anything heavier than a mug. He made her breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He monitored her vitamins and her sleep schedule. I'm pregnant, not sick. Sophia would laugh. I know, but I want to take care of you. I want to make up for all the time I was an idiot. You've already made up for it 100 times over. Well, one more time won't hurt. Lucy came over every week bringing fruit, baby magazines, endless advice about pregnancy. You need to walk for at least an hour a day. I walk and eat right. I eat right and no stress. Lucy, you're worse than a mother-in-law. Her friend froze, realizing the double meaning of the phrase. Then they both burst out laughing. Well, at least I'm not poisoning you, Lucy said through her laughter. That's true. You're just smothering me with your care. It's my job. I'm the godmother. We haven't decided on godparents yet. I've already decided for you. No objections will be accepted. Sophia hugged her friend. What would she have done without Lucy, without her support, her stubbornness, her endless loyalty? Thank you. For what? For everything. For being there when I was at my worst. For believing me when even my husband doubted. For that night in the storeroom. Lucy waved it off. Nonsense. It's us. You and me against the world. Remember in college? I remember. They fell silent, reminiscing about their student years, the dorms, the exams, the late-night talks about the future. Everything seemed so simple then. Find a job, find love, be happy. Reality turned out to be more complicated, but also more interesting. Richard, upon hearing about the pregnancy, was moved to tears. A new life, he said, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. After what you've been through, a new life is a miracle. You're exaggerating. Not at all. Do you know how many cases I handled in my career? Hundreds. And in most of them, the ending was tragic. Death, prison, broken families. But here, a happy ending. It's a rarity, believe me. Thanks to you. What are you saying? I just noticed something was wrong. Everything else as you're doing. Sophia shook her head. If you hadn't approached me on the subway, I would be dead. That's a fact. Richard was silent. You know, at that moment, I hesitated. I thought, what if I'm wrong? What if this woman looks at me like I'm a lunatic? But something pushed me. Maybe intuition, maybe experience, or maybe fate. I believe in fate, Sophia said. After everything that's happened, I believe. The months passed. The belly grew. The baby kicked. And every kick filled Sophia with an indescribable happiness. She talked to her little one, sang songs, read books aloud. You're spoiling him. Alex laughed. Him or her? What? The ultrasound confirmed it. It's a girl. Alex froze. A girl? We're having a daughter? Yes. He knelt in front of her and rested his cheek on her belly. Hello, little one. I'm your daddy. I love you already. Sophia stroked his hair, her heart overflowing with tenderness. This man, her husband, the father of her daughter, had been through fire to become who he was now. Not perfect, but real. They took a long time to choose a name. They went through hundreds of options, from classic to exotic. Anna. Alex suggested. No. Too common. Isabella. Too long. So what? Sophia thought. What if we name her after someone close to us? Like who? Your grandmother, for example. What was her name? Alex frowned. My paternal grandmother was Carmen. My maternal one. Dolores? Dolores? No. And Carmen. Claire is pretty. Claire Sanchez. Alex tried it out. Sounds good, decided. Our daughter will be named Claire. They shook hands as if sealing an important deal, and then laughed at themselves at their solemnity at everything. The labor began at night, as expected. Sophia woke up with a dull ache in her lower abdomen, and knew. It's time. Alex? 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 Wake up. What? It started. He jumped up as if stung, and started rushing around the room, looking for his clothes, the keys, the hospital bag. Calm down, Sophia said, though she was nervous too. The bag is by the door. The papers are inside. The car is in the garage. Yes, I know. I'm just panicking. I'm panicking too, he admitted. Sophia smiled despite the pain. Then let's panic together on the way to the hospital. They got to the hospital in time. The contractions intensified, and by morning, Sophia was in the delivery room. Alex stayed outside. He wanted to be present, but she refused. This is my test. I can handle it. Are you sure? Absolutely. And she did handle it. Claire was born at dawn, small, wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and a surprisingly lucid gaze. When the midwife placed her on Sophia's chest, time stood still. Hello, little one, she whispered. I've waited so long for you. The baby looked at her seriously, intently, as if recognizing her, and then yawned and closed her eyes. Sophia cried from happiness, from relief, from the overwhelming love. Everything she had been through, the poisoning, the betrayal, the pain, had led her here to this moment. And it was worth it. They let Alex in, an hour later. He tiptoed in, as if afraid of scaring someone, and froze by the bed. It's her. That's her. That's Claire. He took his daughter in his arms clumsily, like all new fathers. Claire whimpered a little, but then quieted down. She's so small. 7 pounds, a normal weight, and so beautiful. She looks like you, Sophia smiled. She has your nose, see? Look. Alex examined the tiny face. Yes, maybe. And the chin is mine too. See? Teamwork. He leaned over and kissed his wife tenderly, gratefully. Thank you. For what? For everything. For existing. For forgiving me. For Claire. For our family. Sophia took his hand. We're a team. Remember? The first few months with the baby were a whirlwind. Night feedings, endless diapers, colic and teething. Sophia and Alex didn't sleep. They argued over little things. They made up even faster. I read that the first year with a baby is a test for a marriage, Alex said once, rocking a crying Claire. We've already passed a tougher test, Sophia replied. This is nothing. And it was true. After the poisoning, the betrayal, the trial, sleepless nights seemed like a trifle. They managed together, as a team. Lucy became the godmother, as she had promised. Richard, the unofficial honorary grandfather. Little Claire grew up surrounded by love and care. For her first birthday, they threw a small party, just the closest family and friends. Lucy brought a giant teddy bear. Richard brought a small silver spoon, an antique, engraved for good luck. He said, "Thank you." Sophia hugged the old man. Over the year he had become truly dear to her. "How are you feeling?" she asked him. He had looked tired lately. "Normal. Age, you know. I'm not a young man anymore. You need to take care of yourself." "I do. I do. But when you have someone to live for, even illness retreats." He looked at Claire, who was seriously examining the gifted teddy bear. "A wonderful girl, just like her mother. Alex says she looks like him." Then both of you, the best of both. That evening, after the guests had left, and Claire was asleep, Sophia and Alex sat in the kitchen, finishing their tea. "It's funny," she said. "What is? A year ago we were in the worst kind of hell. And now, everything is fine. Really fine. Yes. Do you miss the old life?" Alex thought for a moment. "Sometimes, not my mother, but the illusion that I had a perfect family. It was comfortable, you know, to believe that everything was okay. And now I know the truth." It's more painful, but it's more honest. He took her hand. And you know what? I wouldn't trade this honesty for anything. Sophia nodded. She understood. Me neither. They fell silent. And it was a good silence, full of understanding, closeness, and love. Claire grew into an incredible child. At 2, she was already forming sentences. At 3, she asked endless questions about everything. Sophia left her job at the pharmacy to devote herself to her daughter. Alex worked for both of them. He was promoted, and now they could afford it. You don't regret it? He would ask her. Not for a second. This is the best job of my life. And it was true. Watching her daughter grow, teaching her new things, seeing the world through her eyes, nothing could compare to this happiness. Eleanor was still in prison. Alex continued to visit her less frequently, once every 3 or 4 months. He always came back quiet, lost in thought. How is she? Sophia would ask. The same. Nothing has changed. He no longer shared the details, and she didn't ask. It was his pain, his cross to bear. She could only be there for him. One day he came back from a visit, especially pensive. Sophia, I want to ask you something. What is it? Mom, she asked to see Claire. At least in a photo. Sophia tensed. Did you show her? No. I told her I would talk to you first. She was silent. A part of her wanted to refuse outright. That woman had tried to kill her. What right did she have to see her daughter? But another part understood that she was Claire's grandmother. Whatever she had done, I'll think about it. Alex nodded. Thank you for not saying no right away. She thought about it for several days. She consulted with Lucy, who was categorically against it, and with Richard, who told her the decision was hers. It's your family, he said. And your right to forgive or not. I don't know if I can forgive. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. Sometimes it takes a lifetime, but it starts with a small step. A week later, Sophia gave Alex a photo of Claire, a small one, where the girl was smiling at the camera, holding a teddy bear. Can you show her this? He looked at her with gratitude. Are you sure? No, but it's the right thing to do. Claire has a right to know she has a grandmother, even if she did terrible things. Thank you. He hugged her tightly, gratefully, and she realized it was another step toward healing. Not forgiveness, not yet. But a movement in that direction. The years went by. Claire went to preschool, then to school. She grew up to be a smart, curious girl with a strong character, a true mix of her parents. Who did she get this stubbornness from? Alex would laugh. From you, of course. That's a lie. You're the stubborn one here. I'm persistent. It's different. They argued like all families. But their arguments were different. No poison, no manipulation, no third parties trying to stir up trouble between them. Eleanor was released from prison when Claire was 7. Her sentence had been reduced for good behavior. Alex went to pick her up. Sophia stayed home. She wasn't ready for that meeting, maybe she never would be. He came back late that night. Alone. How did it go? Strange. She's aged so much. Completely gray, very quiet. What did she say? She asked for forgiveness. Sophia froze. For the first time in all these years, she said she thought a lot in prison, that she realized how wrong she was, that she ruined our lives. Yours, mine, and hers. And did you believe her? Alex was silent. I don't know. I want to believe her, but I'm scared. Scared of what? That it's another manipulation, that she hasn't really changed. Sophia nodded. She understood his fear. She felt the same. What did you tell her? I told her that forgiveness is a process. That I need time. That's wise. Those are your words. You said them to me once. She smiled. I'm glad they came in handy. Eleanor settled in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. Alex helped her financially. Sophia didn't object. Her mother-in-law was an old, sick, and lonely woman. Whatever she had done, that punishment was harsh enough. The first meeting between Sophia and Eleanor took place 6 months after her release. Sophia prepared for a long time, mentally and emotionally. She didn't know what to expect. Her mother-in-law opened the door, and Sophia barely recognized her. Thin, stooped, with a dull gaze. There was nothing left of the imperious, self-assured woman who had once terrified her. Hello. Eleanor said softly. Hello, a pause. Then the mother-in-law stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was small and sparsely furnished. On the wall was a single photo, the same one Alex had brought her in prison. Clear with a teddy bear. Would you like some tea? Yes, thank you. They sat at a tiny kitchen table. Eleanor poured the tea with trembling hands. I'm glad you came. Alex asked me to. I know, but you could have refused. Sophia nodded. I could have, but I didn't. I wanted to look you in the eye. And what do you see? Sophia looked into her mother-in-law's face. Aged, changed. I see the woman who tried to kill me and the woman who paid for it. Eleanor looked down. I didn't want to. I didn't think. You didn't think it was so dangerous. I know. It's not an excuse. No. It's not an excuse. Silence. Then Eleanor spoke softly. Her voice broken. When Alex brought you home, I was scared. He looked at you in a way he never looked at me. I realized I was losing him, and I couldn't accept it. You weren't losing him. He loved you, but he loved me too. And it seemed to me there wasn't room for both of us in his heart. Sophia shook her head. That's not true. There's always room in the heart for those you love. You yourself poisoned his feelings for you with your jealousy, with your intrigues. Long before that pendant. The mother-in-law flinched. You're right. I know you're right. But I was blind then. And now? Now I see. Late? But I see. They sat drinking tea for another hour. The conversation was difficult, painful, but necessary. Sophia didn't forgive her. Not yet. But she took a step toward it. I want to see my granddaughter, Eleanor said as they parted. If you'll let me. Sophia thought about it. Not now. Maybe in time. When I'm ready, I understand. And, one more thing. Yes. If you ever, even once, try to turn Claire against me, to deceive or manipulate her, I will never let you near her again. Is that clear? Eleanor nodded. Clear. I won't. I swear. Sophia left without looking back. Alex was waiting for her on the street. How did it go? Normal. Better than I expected. He hugged her. You're an incredible woman. You know that? I know. They laughed together. Like in the old days. The first meeting between Claire and her grandmother took place a year later. Sophia prepared her daughter for a long time. She explained that Grandma had been sick and had done bad things, but that she was better now. Like a cold? Claire asked. Something like that. But in her head. And now she's healthy? I hope so. The meeting was on neutral territory in a park. Eleanor came with a gift. A book of fairy tales. Hello, Claire, she said, her voice trembling. I'm your grandmother. Claire looked at her seriously, with the same gaze as her mother. Mom says you were sick. Yes, but I'm better now. That's good. Being sick is bad. Eleanor smiled for the first time in a long time. Yes, it's bad. But I'm well now. She handed her the book. This is for you. Claire took the gift and thanked her politely. Then she turned to Sophia. Mom, can we go to the swings? Of course. The girl ran to the playground. Sophia and Eleanor were left alone. Thank you. The mother-in-law said quietly. Thank you for giving me this chance. Don't thank me. Thank Alex. He insisted. But you agreed. Sophia was silent. I'm not a saint, Eleanor. I haven't forgotten what you did. And I'm not sure I ever will. I'm not asking you to forget. But I'm tired of hating. It takes too much energy. Energy that I want to spend on my family, on my daughter, on being happy. That's wise. It's practical. They fell silent, watching Claire, who was swinging on the swings, laughing with joy. She's beautiful, Eleanor said. Yes, we tried. And you succeeded. It wasn't the end of the story. The relationship with Eleanor remained complicated, not hostile, but not close either. Sophia couldn't bring herself to love her mother-in-law, but she learned to coexist with her for the sake of her husband, her daughter, and her own peace of mind. Richard died when Claire was 10, peacefully in his sleep, with a smile on his face. Sophia cried at his funeral as if he were her own family. He saved me, she told Alex. If it weren't for him, I know. I want Claire to remember him. She does. And she will. They put his photo on the mantelpiece, next to the family pictures. Richard smiled from it with his wise smile, and it seemed to Sophia that he was still nearby, looking out for her. Lucy got married late, at 42, but happily. Her chosen one was a doctor from her clinic, a calm, reliable man with kind eyes. I finally hit the jackpot. She laughed at the wedding. You deserve it. We both do. You hit yours earlier. Me later. The important thing is that we hit it. Sophia hugged her friend. I'm so happy for you. And I for you. I always have been. They danced together, the two friends who had been through thick and thin. Behind them were years difficult, joyful, different. Ahead of them were more years, and they faced them together. One evening, when Claire was already 12, she came to Sophia with a question. Mom, is it true that Grandma wanted to poison you? Sophia froze. She knew this conversation would come one day, but she wasn't ready. Where did you hear that? I found it on the internet. There are articles about the trial. Sophia, see who. The internet remembers everything. It's true. But why? Because she was sick, not in her body, but in her soul. She loved Dad so much that she couldn't stand him loving someone else, but that's silly. You can love lots of people at once. You can, but she didn't understand that. Claire thought for a moment. And have you forgiven her? Sophia was silent. I'm learning to forgive. It's hard, you know. When someone hurts you badly, it's impossible to forgive right away. But holding a grudge is even harder. That's why I'm learning. And how's it going? Slowly. A little better every day. Claire hugged her mother. You're the best mom in the world. And you're the best daughter. They stood like that, hugging in the quiet room. And Sophia thought about the long road she had traveled. From that exhausted woman on the subway, saved by an unknown jeweler, to a happy wife and mother. The road had been hard. There were times when she wanted to give up. There were moments of despair and pain. But she endured. They endured, together with Alex. And it was worth it. That same evening, Alex found his wife by the window. She was watching the sunset, red, golden, incredibly beautiful. What are you thinking about? He asked. About life. About how everything turned out. Do you regret anything? Sophia thought for a moment. No. Not even the bad things. Because without the bad, there wouldn't have been the good. We wouldn't be who we are now. Alex came up and hugged her from behind. I love you. I love you too. Thank you for not giving up. For giving me a chance. Thank you for taking it. They stood by the window, watching the sunset. And Sophia felt absolutely, completely happy. Not because everything was perfect. Life is never perfect. But because she had learned to find happiness in what she had. Family, love, 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 love. Everything good in her life. Goodbye, she whispered. I forgive you. And she felt something inside her release, something heavy she had carried for all these years. The resentment, the pain, the fear, it all went away, dissolved, disappeared. Only love remained for her husband, for her daughter, for life. And that was enough. Now many years later, Sophia sometimes takes out an old photo, the one of her and Alex on their wedding day. Young, happy, not knowing what awaited them. If you had known then, she says to her